welcome everybody. We are now in season 3 of Qualified TV, and man, these are two guys I have the utmost respect for. Not only in terms of Alpha, which is the way I met both of them, but also just in terms of their passions and. You'll be able to tell that by the conversation we're about to have. But I will let the two black nerds introduce themselves before we get into the rest of the interview. And man, I'll give it to y'all.
Appreciate it, man. This is Jordan. One co-host, I should say, one half of the Two Black Nerds podcast. I don't know if I should say anything else besides my name and that. But
We'll get into it in the interview.
Yeah, sounds good. This is Desmond, the other half of Two Black Nerds, man. Happy to be here.
Of course, man. Thank y'all again for being here. But yeah, I love to just start from the beginning. So for people that don't know, the Two Black Nerds or Two Black Nerds, excuse me, is a podcast hosted by these two, obviously, that focuses on pop culture, that's music, that's film, really anything that falls under really the pop culture realm. These guys are going to touch on, and they're essentially experts at this point. So if you're not paying attention to their opinions, then I don't know what you're really doing or how you're staying afloat out here. But man, for both of y'all, where did this fascination and this interest in things pop culture, whether it be film, whether it be just having this different ear for music and knowing that you wanted to kind of have conversations about it, or at least feeling like your opinions were worth having conversations about it, when did that kind of start for you all, and when did you all first kind of see that within yourselves?
It's no one place that it can be really pinpointed. Obviously, I think it's a collection of different things. A lot of the passion and the interest just comes from just like upbringing, childhood, being exposed to things at an early age, watching a lot of movies or listening to a lot of music. Just doing what young kids or teenagers or whatever it is you do. You find those things that you're really interested in, and you latch onto them. But for me personally, I just noticed that at a really young age, like film was really my thing. Like definitely still a music head for sure, but film was really, really my thing that I spent a lot of time with. And so that obviously just continued through the ages. But as I got older and once like I got to college and stuff like that, and just started to have access to new opportunities, having the ability to talk about that stuff in different mediums, that started to become more of a normal thing. So doing different web series or little webisodes, or creating your own content to make movie reviews or music reviews or whatever it might have been, that was something that I just started to like play around with. And it just became something that was always interesting to have some sort of outlet to just speak about that, because me and my group of friends, like we always did that anyway. We'd always just spend hours talking about this stuff, right? So it was like, well, now we're getting into the digital age where like podcasts and YouTube is like really blowing up. Can we create opportunities to do it there as well? And so that obviously just turned into different opportunities. Some lasted for a while, some didn't. It's just trying out different methods of things. But that passion to just like speak about it never really left, right? And even if I didn't have an actual outlet to do it in, I always had people, that I could connect with, that I could talk to about that stuff. And you could just have those 3-4 hour conversations just talking about whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it was always just something that was just like there and a part of my life. So I think that all naturally just, sort of formed into, what we do now on Two Black Nerds every week, with the podcast, is continuing those conversations and talking about the stuff that we love.
For sure.
Man, he said that so well. I don't know how to follow up with that, because
Right.
that was really good. A lot of that is the same, to be honest. When you're a kid, you latch on to certain again pop culture throughout your life. When you're little, you turn to Cartoon Networks and your Disney channels and Nickelodeons, the golden eras, right? Or really any cartoon that's on TV, and you enjoy those things. And you might go to school and start talking about that with your friends, maybe like, hey, you see that episode of Kids Next Door last night, or something like that. So it's always been nice, to have people to talk about the stuff that you watch at home. But I was the same way. My mom always bought me tons of VHS tapes when I was little. I had the orange Rugrats tape and Lion King. We probably had everything under the sun when it came to at least animated movies. And so I would just run those back and back. That was it just it just keeps happening as you get older, right? Into the DVD age, the PlayStation 2 comes out. It's like, oh man, I'm about to pop in some DVDs
Yeah,
because I can now. You know what I mean? Like that was a really big thing that was happening. And so, like Jordan said, fast forward to college, you do um, you begin to even articulate your thoughts even better about the things you've been watching, even the things you watch when you were little, because you become, a little bit more well spoken. You're able to like decipher things maybe a little bit deeper or harder than you used to when you were younger. And like you said, we already talked like that before,
right,
me and Jordan. So it was like, well, we might as well start recording it. And it also makes sense to a point where you might start giving your opinions on like a Twitter or Instagram or just to your friends, and then all of a sudden they start coming to you for music or movies or video game reviews, and I was like,
right,
man, am I really, decent at this? Or like,
right.
am I really knowledgeable about this? And that's just kind of a little bit of reassurance. And so, like you said, here we are.
Yeah. And so Desmond, would you say you're more of a film person or a music person?
I'm not sure I can pick, to be honest, because
That's real.
I'm just both, it's two in one kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think I kind of my split is more so in music and sports. Now I
Hmm.
have become more of a fan of film over the years. Like so, Jordan, when I changed my major to digital storytelling, I got more into how the camera works. So I started paying more attention to film and things like that. But my split early on was music and sports. So like y'all said, as a kid, I mean, I had a Fisher Price from jump. So then that transitioned into having the actual court in the backyard, a court I probably had from first grade probably until I went to college and wasn't using it anymore. But I agree. I think as children, these are things that kind of start out subconsciously, like things we just start to watch things that are just normal, and then as we get older, we start to understand because I would say a lot of things, music and film and TV, there was so much meaning and a lot of what was double meaning, I should say. It wasn't just like, oh, it's animated and it's for kids. There's a lot of actual life lessons or a lot of things they threw in there that maybe as kids we didn't catch right away until you're older and you start to hear certain things and see other things and realize that, oh, okay, they're actually talking about something relatively serious or relatively what's the word I'm looking for, relevant, even in today's age for us. But I think you both mentioned something in terms of being the digital age and speaking about podcasts becoming very, very popular and even trendy to a certain degree. So with you all starting the podcast and understanding that, okay, you guys both have these similar passions and you guys feel comfortable and good having conversations with each other, what was it like starting a podcast and figuring out what's going to make us different, seeing as almost everybody and their mama are doing a podcast nowadays, which isn't a bad thing, and it's actually pretty good that more people are using that forum. But with that market kind of being saturated, what all did you guys want to make sure Two Black Nerds had that could separate itself, from what else is out there?
Yeah, I think it's we're still figuring it out. It's not something that was solved with episode one. It's
Right.
something that we continue to think about and analyze even now, a little bit over a year into doing it. And that's kind of the beauty of a podcast, is that it could continue to develop and grow over time. And I think we're always willing to listen to people to see, are there things that we can possibly do in the future that are, that might be a little bit different than what we've done in the past, or things that they haven't seen in other podcasts or other platforms. So I think a big part of the conversation, obviously, at the beginning stages of it, though, was bringing in that Black perspective, of course, on, not only the Black films and entertainment and music that we love, but also just the general stuff that comes out too. Because it's like, we're nerdy about video games, and we're nerdy about pro wrestling, and like Des in particular is like really nerdy about anime. And it's like, there's communities for these people. We exist in all of these spaces. But how many times do you hear an outlet that speaks about it, each and every week? And so I think not limiting ourselves to just like one particular thing or idea has been a really good thing. But then also just remembering, like, not only are we going to talk about that general stuff that we really love, but we're also going to try to highlight as much Black creativity as we can, whether it's Black filmmakers or musicians, artists, animators, whatever it may be, trying to figure out ways to highlight them as often as we can. with the knowledge that we do have. And then I think the last thing is that, you know, Des mentioned this earlier, is that we both have like groups of people and communities of people that eventually, when we start talking about this stuff frequently enough on social media, they're coming to us like, yeah, I need to know, do I need to spend this $5 or this $10 on this movie or not? Like, you got to tell me what's up. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna be real with you, because I'm gonna see it anyway. But if you want to save some money, I'll be real with you and let you know the movie probably ain't that good. You probably can wait. So I think also just being serviceable to the people that are around us, like the immediate circles of people that are around us that will listen to us, that do take our opinions seriously, and that do use that information that we're giving out to make whatever decisions that they want in terms of like what they're going to consume, whether it's going to be an album that they want to listen to or a movie that they may or may not pay to see. You know what I'm saying? So having that immediate connection with people where they can easily tweet us and we're going to respond. It's not no celebrity type shit. We're going to respond. I don't know if I can curse or not, but we're going to be talking to them. Yeah, we're going to be talking to them and be like, yeah, man, you should just listen to the podcast, but I'll tell you right now too, I'll tweet it back to you, but you should really listen to the podcast,
Yeah.
So not being too, not being too, I guess, I don't know the word, just like sedating with just like how we give out
Hollywood about it.
Yeah. Hollywood about it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, if you don't want to listen to the podcast or listen to all the way through, that's cool too. I could tweet back to you and let you know, but this is there if you want to reach out and have that resource too. So yeah, that's what I would say.
For sure. Yeah, there's like this other aspect where when you listen to other podcasts, I don't know, I feel like our forum kind of just doesn't exist in a lot of ways, right? Like a lot of my favorite podcasts was like The Read. I used to listen to Joe Budden, of course, for a little bit. I listened to Brilliant Idiots. Yeah, I don't know, it's all this different stuff. And I just never found the one that was Black people talking about the things that we talk about, honestly. Again, specifically movies, music, and video games. Of course, music, but like all together,
Right.
And like everything together. And so I think that was just one of the things I was like, well, it might be time. We might be the ones, possibly, to make that happen. So that was another kind of aspect of it, I think.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's something. I think the first thing that stood out about Two Black Nerds to me was, well, one, I think if anybody knows you two individually and personally, it's already an easy sell. I mean, if anybody knows Jordan, first of all, Jordan gonna let you know if something trash. He ain't gonna hold nothing back about it. He's gonna let you know. That's pretty trash, bro. I don't know. But he'll let you know, and you as well. So I think the respect is already there, like you guys mentioned, even just from social media, that you guys obviously do your homework, you do your research. So it's not just solely based in how you feel about something emotionally. It's attached to you all watching something, understanding the history of whatever it is that you're talking about. But I also think it's interesting that there is this intersection that I feel like a lot of us don't even really understand between music, film, video games. Like there's a very large complexity and intertwining of all of those different communities where a lot of the conversations are essentially the same. But I think back and I remember, anime just kind of became cool for Black people to start watching like recently, like in the last 5 years or so, at least from my knowledge. Like I'm not a huge anime fan, but I didn't hear, Black people talking about anime until, a few years ago. So how has it been kind of staying up to date and staying refreshed on everything in all those communities, knowing that there's going to always be this intersection and that's the focus of you all's podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I think that research part is really, really, I take that very seriously. I take it extremely like to know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not gonna speak about something I don't know about. I'm not gonna pretend like I know about it if I don't. Like if somebody can educate me about it, and like there's a ton of stuff that Desmond like bring up or talk about, and I don't know that much about it, and I'm gonna let him take it away. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna act like I got all the knowledge or all the answers, but for the things that I do know, like I take that very seriously to do the research to figure out as much as I can about it beforehand, and being able to come up with knowledgeable, articulate thoughts about that stuff. So I listen to a lot of other stuff, I read up on a lot of stuff, and just like try to get as much information as I can just to prepare myself and make sure that we can present the best thing in the the most well-rounded thoughts possible. But I think that's a big part of it, to try to also separate yourself, is just the preparation behind the scenes, like how much work can you do to get it in the best place that it can be, so that the time you hit record, it's like you're just going, you're just flowing. And luckily, I think because we live in the times that we do, it's a lot easier, I think, to get that information now. Like you can really just, if you follow the right people, you follow the right channels, you're sort of in tune with that stuff. Like you can get that information without necessarily even having to like go after it yourself. Sometimes it just comes to you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of a beauty and a blessing of it. But there has to be time taken out to like actually dive into that stuff to really know all the ins and outs and present new information or information that might not be as knowledgeable across a wider base of people, so that you can present all of those different nuances to something that you're talking about. Because I think it's easy to give your opinion about something and say like, I think this about this, and that's fine, that's cool, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not up to us as like consumers to know the ins and outs of everything. I think we're just like literally here to enjoy the product. However, I think when we have a platform like we do, you have a responsibility to say, okay, I can give my opinion, but I also have to have a educated, knowledgeable opinion that has a lot more information and context that can explain and maybe unpack why some things are the way that they are, right? And that's why people go to a podcast or go to a YouTube video. Like you don't want to just necessarily hear anybody's opinion. You're gonna hear somebody that's like closer to you on your level, but they're still educated and knowledgeable about whatever it is that they're talking about, right? So I think that takes a lot of the time, to sort of put that together and think about all those different things that intersect, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think some of it is experience too, to be honest. Like you just brought up anime. I've been watching anime my whole life, and so, you saying like people just now getting into it about the past 5 years, which is true. That is happening. There's a big like black people in anime renaissance that's kind of happening at the moment. A lot of that is it's easy for me to help other people, give them the tools, you know what I mean, to like help them catch up or learn what is this and what is that, because I've just been doing it for so long. So I think a lot of his experience too. Even I don't know, when it comes to film, me and Jordan, we just know some things about the industry that other people maybe don't know because we've just been in it so long. A
Right.
lot of it is just simply experience. But on the other hand, like you just said, a lot of it's research. Like one of my favorite episodes to this day is when we talked about episode 1 of Watchmen, right?
Mm.
And we talk about like the different black women in comic books, and like how that's going. And I wanted to sit down and research the whole Tulsa massacre ins and outs, right? Like I wanted to give the best information as possible because it was a real historic thing that happened, and it just happened to tie to this episode of Watchmen. So like, yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. No, I think that one, I think a lot of things are dope. Honestly, you hear me say a lot is dope, but I think it's dope when somebody even has the desire to do that, because I think so often you see people want to have an opinion on something, and sometimes that opinion, I hate to feel like I'm using the word over and over again, but it feels trendy because that's the opinion that everybody has. We see a lot of groupthink nowadays, so it feels good when somebody takes something, especially within TV and film. Now, there's so much that's connecting back to historical events, like things that actually did happen. And sometimes somebody watching something or reading something is the first time they're actually even hearing of that event. Like there were a lot of people that didn't even know about the Tulsa massacre, maybe until the episode of Watchmen, or maybe until certain things, maybe in the past few years. And some people see it and don't even realize that a film or a TV show might be giving you only half of the story, not because they're trying to leave half out, but they don't have time or they only want to touch on one specific thing. So I think it's dope that you all can even bring that to the table, and I think it's appreciated if people haven't told you all that. You all can give your opinion, but like you said, it's based in, okay, I sat down and researched this, so what I'm bringing to you not only is what I thought of the episode, but what I actually read up on and what I actually saw and was able to make connections to. So I think that is amazing, first and foremost. So like with podcasts and with working with somebody else, it can be a lot. And it can be in terms of a person being difficult, but just finding always finding a new route, because that's what needed to keep a podcast going or keep anything going where you're collaborating. So what has that process been like for you two? And I mean, if y'all have had some disagreements that y'all don't want to get into, obviously, y'all don't have to, but just what's that collaborative process been like? Has it been relatively easy because of where you both are? If there have been difficult parts, what have been the difficult parts about that? Just so other people who want to start a podcast or people who are in the midst of doing it and want to work with somebody else, just so they get a feel of knowing, what that can be like, or just things to kind of be prepared for and look out for as they embark on that journey.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Anytime you're in a collaborative situation, there's always like everything's not always going to be 100% what you think it might be. Like it's always you have to remember it is a collaboration. There is no 100% sort of ownership over really any idea or anything that happens. It's always you should treat it as a partnership, but that takes also just like you have to like check your ego too. And I think luckily for both of us, like we had time before we actually started the podcast to just like have regular conversations, just to talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we could already sort of establish what our verbal relationship is and what that communication relationship is going to be. So that was never hard. I don't think any of the actual, like when it comes down to it, like delivering the points that we want to talk about and the discussions that we want to have. I don't think any of that stuff is ever really difficult because we already had those conversations and spent the time doing that. So it becomes pretty easy, especially when like two people got chemistry or more than two people, whatever it is. But I think the thing that we also have to like realize too is that this is still, even though it's been a little bit over a year, this is still like early stages of something that who knows where it could go. But we're always trying to build and have new ideas. So I think again, it just requires us to step back to realize like if somebody has like a point of criticism or critique or whatever it may be, like I'll listen to it. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm not above that. I'm not above listening to what people might think about it. And if it makes sense for the show, we can figure out a way to implement it. If it doesn't, then maybe we can revisit it, whatever it might be. So, having those open conversations, like just being open to have those things, I think helps a lot. Not not really, going extended amounts of time like without talking to each other about whatever the direction is going to be in the future. And if there's an idea that's going to happen, I'm typically on the side of like, if we can make it happen, let's try to make it happen. And I might have some questions about stuff. It's like, well, maybe we should do this later, or does it make sense for now? I don't know. But I think typically for a new idea, for something that's relatively new, it's like I'm open to it. So I think all of that type of stuff, it never requires any sort of like, it never requires any sort of ego to come in on my part to be like, well, no, maybe we shouldn't. It's like, nah, like it's cool. We're not above anything. We can try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, big deal. We just keep moving on and do what does work. But I mean, we see each other. We hang out outside of the podcast. Like we were already cool before that. I think all of that stuff really helps. And like we were boys and friends and stuff like that. Obviously, brothers in the same frat. Like all of that stuff helps to just create an easier relationship. So, some things don't even have to be said because we're kind of thinking the same thing too. Like we're kind of on the same wavelength. Like, you know what? I was thinking that same thing. Cool. We'll go that direction.
Right.
That makes it a lot easier. I will say that. The only challenge I think has been the biggest part is just like this year with the pandemic, like there was just a lack of stuff to talk about for a long time. So it's like, do we do a show? Are we forcing, content? Like, will we really have anything to talk about? So there were time periods where it's like, I guess, we're just not going to do a show, and that's cool too. Like it doesn't have to be, we don't have to just come up with something if we don't really feel passionate about it, So it's also about being adaptable too. That's a big part of it.
For sure.
Yeah, I honestly don't have much to add to that, if anything. I will say also we've always been very I guess technical guys, right? We've been behind cameras and stuff like that, so we were already ready, kind of prepared for what the audio aspect would look like. Of course, it's easy to do research and stuff like that, but we kind of had kind of a head on our shoulders on which direction we wanted to go. So I think that research into that portion, what you actually curating your sound is important as well, I guess is what I would say.
For sure. Was there a reason you all didn't want to have a visual aspect to the podcast as well? Is there a reason you solely wanted to do audio, or no?
I mean, we definitely talked about a visual aspect. Here's the thing: it's two of us, right? It's two of us that do this. I think the work is pretty equally distributed in terms of like responsibilities, and to add on a visual aspect is a significant amount of work. Like it's more significant than I think people realize. And it's all about really where your audience is going to be. That's kind of, I think, the more important question. It's not like should we or shouldn't we. It's like, well, if we were to do a visual aspect, if we did like record videos, how many people are going to watch it there versus going to Spotify or Apple, right? And so it wasn't visual, I guess, in the traditional sense, but we were like initially putting stuff on YouTube, which again was a lot of work, and then come to find out that like a couple of things might hit like better here and there, but like overall it just people just weren't there, like at least our audience specifically was not there. And that's not to say that they won't ever be there. It's not to say that it won't ever get there. And I know like video podcasting and having that option has become like a really big thing. So again, this is not to say that it won't ever become a thing. I'm just saying that it's two of us. That's what I'm saying. It's two of
Yeah.
us. So much can happen, especially if we're recording weekly or bi-weekly. Like you can do so much, right? Versus like both of us still got jobs too. Like this isn't like our full-time deal. So like how much time and effort are we going to put into something? If I'm going to put time and effort into something like that, or if we have somebody else come in and help out with that, like I want to see a return on that investment too. You know what I'm saying? Like we see the returns on the audio format, but the video, not quite as much as I think we probably both would like. But we'll see what happens. That could change in the future. This is the beginning phases of it. Who's to say that at some point we won't venture into that territory, because we may.
For sure. Anything to add, Des?
No, I just think that capacity part is real. Like you said several times, there's only two of us. There's only so much we can do. So, that's it.
No, most definitely. I think you're absolutely correct that people don't really understand how much the video component is. I mean, as somebody who has multiple video podcasts, it's a lot. It's a lot getting, and it's just a matter, especially because like me and Derek, who's my editor, we don't live, in the same place. So every video that's being done, that stuff has to be sent. It has to be uploaded and then sent and then sent back. So it's a lot of back and forth that even in the most efficient ways takes a lot more time than I think people realize. So I think that is a huge component just in terms of content creation in general. But you all mentioned the pandemic. So content creation in the pandemic, you all kind of spoke to it, but what just, I know for me, for the first about 2 months, I didn't do anything. Like from March to May, I don't even think that I wasn't thinking about content, but it was just like, it was a mix of kind of enjoying, the fact that we seem to be in the house and kind of have a break from responsibilities for a minute. And then another half was like, oh, it kind of actually set in after a while, like, oh, we in the house. We really can't go nowhere.
Like we're here
Yeah, like this is real. This is happening. And it wasn't until about the summer that I kind of had the resurgence of energy to really get back in to actual content creation, because it takes a lot of that. I don't think people realize the energy of knowing things have to be scheduled out in advance. You really want to have a plan when you're doing content creation, and more especially in a pandemic. So just speak to, I know you already spoke to the kind of adaptability piece, but just what did those first kind of 3 months look like? Did you guys have a phase where it was like, I don't really feel like doing no content right now? Or was it always the time is not right, but I'm still thinking about content? Like kind of what was the thought process more so for Two Black Nerds and any individual pieces that you guys want to add as well?
Yeah. You want to go first, Des?
Yeah. When the pandemic first hit for us, honestly, there wasn't much to do. I mean, there was movie theaters were shut down. Movies are like that's our baseline. That's what we do. But even then, across the board, it was quiet. There wasn't a lot of music. There wasn't a lot of TV. Sports are shut down. We also love sports. Sports shut down. So it was like we kind of don't have any content because that's literally the makeup of what we do. Also, at the same time, because of the pandemic, we had to learn to record in different places. We used to actually meet up to record together in one spot, and again, that whole thing changed. So again, like you said, first couple months, it was not only what is there to do. It was like, what can we do? There's nothing we can do. So we kind of, I guess, took that back seat, like you said, kind of took accepted the fact we was in the house, and started catching up on old content, and that's kind of what it was until up until different people kind of got the energy and found their different marketing strategies to start coming out with content again.
Yeah, I think that yeah, those first like couple of months, month and a half, whatever it was, it listen, it was kind of a state of shock. Like, oh, okay, like we're really at home.
Yeah.
And to your point, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. A lot of it was like, well, listen, if I'm at home, I'm
I'm
taking
at home.
advantage of that. I'm at
Mhm.
home. The general expectation across the board is that everybody's at home. So theoretically, less work is happening. So I'm gonna enjoy that. But then that moment settles in like, no, this is sticking around. This is gonna be a thing. You can't operate under that sort of idea of thinking for the entire year. Because
Right.
I'm not a part of LLC Twitter who's like, yeah, start that business you always wanted to start now. I'm like, no, bro, I work hard. I'm chilling. Like, I don't care. I'm chilling. I'm taking this time to chill. Don't hit me up. Don't expect nothing from me. Don't expect no productivity. But after a while, it's like, all right, it is what it is now. And I do got to work at a certain point. I do got to get off of this like vacation mindset and get back to it. But I don't think that's laziness. I don't fault anybody for that. I think you absolutely have to get reinvigorated with energy. And you have to find ways to be reinvigorated when you're in the crib, like all day, all the time.
Mhm.
And
All the time.
yeah, like all the time. And to Des's point earlier, like the thing that I felt like gave us a lot of energy in the beginning stages of the podcast was just the ability to go. Like we went to the movies every week, like sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week, every week, right? So it was always just easy after work. It's like we meeting up. We got a movie to see Thursday. We got one to see Friday. We got one to see Saturday. We got all of our stuff lined up for the show that we're gonna record on Sunday, Monday, whatever it was. It was just like clockwork. It's like all weekend we're taking in all the new stuff. Music's dropping on Friday. Sunday was typically just like chill rest day, and then Monday we meet up to record to have a show out by Tuesday. So when you're not doing that sort of flow and schedule anymore, and stuff just stops, and yeah, you got to take time to step back and figure out what it's going to look like in the future. And I feel like honestly, it was just like the middle and the end of summers when stuff really started to pick back up across the board.
Yeah.
You know, we could really like finally like verses started happening regularly, and then movies were still coming out on streaming and TV shows were still coming out, and it was like, okay, well now we got stuff that we can dive into, maybe not as frequently as we used to do, but we can get back into that. And I think even now, considering that a vaccine is pretty much around the corner and here at this point, like now we're starting to see stuff really kick back into high gear, so we're starting to get back on a more regular flow. Even though we can't meet up in person to do the show, we figured out a way to do it virtually. So big sort of change that we had to undergo, especially early for us. Like we were, when the pandemic hit, we were like, I don't know, 16 episodes, 17 episodes in. So it was like,
Mhm.
it was still early. So it's like, we didn't expect this to happen, but we had to figure out a way to pivot and make it work, under all of this stuff that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I think we all touched on it, but there's a lot of, I think a lot of people see content creation, they see podcasts, they see people starting YouTube channels, they see all these things, and it kind of becomes, I don't want to say people um aren't aware of how much work it is, but I think people start getting into it because they want, let me not just throw it in a bubble and say popularity, but they want to benefit from content creation, and it's not always about having the passion to create the actual content. And I think like you said, it's funny you mentioned LLC Twitter. It sucks because like, wow, like I do have an LLC. I don't consider myself to be LLC Twitter though.
No, you're
Two,
not.
two
You're not.
different
Right,
things.
right,
Yeah.
like
Two
you,
different things.
right, like you won't see me on Twitter like start that bit. Like, start first of all, starting a business is not something you just do just because you got the time or the bread for that matter. Like, you don't just do that. Like, Qualified didn't have an LLC until maybe like 3 or 4 years after I knew exactly like what Qualified was. Like, it still took time. So yeah, LLC Twitter is hilarious. But I think when you have people pushing it, when you have that mindset, it sometimes it makes people feel like that's what they're supposed to do, or that it's just that easy. And the truth is, it's not. It's not easy at all, and it does take time. And like you both said, like this is not our job. Like this is not my main job. Like I still have a job and I'm in school while I do, podcasts. So it's like this is not the main thing that you do. So it's really about having the desire and passion to, work your job and then come home and finish. Like you said, you working all week, then your entire weekend is movies to record at the beginning of the next week. Like that's time and effort. And it's not just like and that's what's rewarding when you see people following or appreciating the content, not just the idea of how many people know y'all. Like while I'm sure you all want, to gain a big following and have people paying attention to the podcast, that's not why you're doing it necessarily. And I think there's a huge misconception for some people when that content creation piece comes into play. What is not the end goal, but what do you all want? At the end of the day, what do you all want people to get and receive from Two Black Nerds? So, what purpose do you want it to serve in your viewers and your audience lives?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the most important thing is that we have people who feel like they can depend on us for reliable opinions, information about different aspects of entertainment, whether it be music, film, television, any of those things. Ultimately, what matters for me is that, like if you said this earlier, like yeah, seeing the audience grow is a goal, of course. Seeing more people listen to it is a goal, of course. Finding new ways to engage with people, all of those things are important. I think to both of us to continue, but ultimately, if there's people who listen to it every week or somewhat regularly and they feel like they're getting something from it, I'm cool with that. If it were to be over tomorrow, I'm cool with that because people have talked to me about it and have shared with me, like, yeah, I listened to that episode, and I heard what y'all thought about this. And so I'm gonna go check that out now because initially I wasn't thinking about it. Or the reverse of that. Like I'm gonna chill out on that because y'all said it wasn't probably the best thing. So um just knowing that again, there's a community of people who get something out of it and they can take that information, make their own decisions about the stuff that they want to watch or consume. That's cool enough for me, honestly. And lastly, just I think people who listen who I think really just respect again like the time and effort that it takes to like know this stuff because you talked about trendy, which we see a lot of trends pop up, and I think the one thing that I'm disappointed about in today's age is that because there's so many things coming out every single week on a film, TV, and music basis, and because we all have social media, everybody has an opinion, and that's fine. Everybody's opinion is cool. Everybody can feel the way that they want to feel, but I just don't. I don't want a platform again like a Two Black Nerds to ever really be muddled with other things because like we actually put time and effort into coming up with this type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? And like there's something to be said about creating a connection with people on a weekly basis instead of just like going on Twitter because anybody can do that. And that's fine. I'm not knocking nobody that does that, but um I just want more of a connection at the end of the day. That's the big thing, like an actual connection, because we can just so often like watch something or listen to something and then it's on to the next thing because there's so much to get to. So I miss those days of like building a legitimate connection, but I don't want people to ever just like confuse us for just like another Twitter account that just tweets out opinions. It's like no, it's much more than that. Like we've been living with this pretty much our whole lives, and it's sort of manifested into this platform for us now. So um, just always remember that like it's a lot of work. So
Yeah. I also think a big part for me is art discovery. If you follow me outside of Two Black Nerds, of course, we talked about it a little bit. I'm a huge music head, and I love being able to bring people new music, either that's tied to the ear that they already have, or even maybe something they've a new genre or something they never heard before that they still find a way to like. I think in a lot of ways, Two Back Nerds tries to do that in a pop culture way, right? Where I love the aspect of our podcast where people can hear about movies they've never heard about before and learn that this black person was tied to this, and this black person was tied to that, and I think that's really important for me when it comes to the podcast too, which is part of the creation of Two Black Nerds movie nights. Right, all these black movies are coming out, and I think it's important for us to, of course, support it, but a lot of people don't even know about it, because
Yeah,
even before the podcast, you hear all the time, what is this? I've never heard of that before. Or, like, what is this movie? What is that movie? Why has nobody told me about this? And like, I think, I enjoy being a small medium, where I'm allowed to tell other people, like, hey, this movie is here. Black people are in it. Black people directed it. You should go watch it, or you should watch it with us. And I think that's also important, to what we're trying to do here at Two Black Nerds.
definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that just perfectly leads into the last and final question that I obviously have to ask. But I want both of y'all to definitely give your take, and then I also want you all to touch on as much as you feel comfortable the individual aspect of it. But what about you two individually um, is qualified, and within that, the um, what makes the creation of Two Black Nerds qualified in terms of what it provides that you all allude to, what it provides for your audience, what it provides in terms of being something that we don't really see within the Black community in terms of a podcast that focuses on these different communities that I wouldn't say is uncommon for Black people, but it's not the mainstream communities that we see, in terms of, your typical music podcasts or your other podcasts that just deal with more so the pop culture drama and things of that nature. You guys are giving a lot of historical facts and giving a lot of, like you said, information and education to people regarding these topics and these communities. So, what makes just everything within that in Two Black Nerds qualified?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, again, the big thing is that it's two guys who would be doing this and having these conversations even without a podcast happening. Like, we would already be doing this. We would already be having these discussions. We would already be on social media trying to expose different artists and creators and highlighting these different things, educating people to the best of our ability. We would already be doing these things. Therefore, now that we have a show and a podcast that we can, do on a regular basis, like, why not listen to it all there and get all that information? And I think we give equal parts, real takes on stuff, how we feel about it, as well as celebration of dope shit that's just out there, whether it's from, specifically Black creators, which is definitely, priority, or just others as well, because if it's good, it's good. Really, at the end of the day, that's how I view it. If it's good, it's good. But of course, I'm always going to be like, yeah, where can we fit in and find like other Black artists and creators that we can highlight too. So I think you're going to find equal parts of both of those things, where we're gonna give our thoughts and opinions on that type of stuff, but we're also going to take time to celebrate and highlight those things, and really put a spotlight on the stuff that people may or may not know about. And again, if they know about it, great. It's just another opportunity to talk about it. But if you don't know about it, that's even better, because now that potentially becomes another person that might engage with, whoever that particular artist or creator might be. So I think those two things, man, honestly, make us qualified, and then, using that to help establish like a really good dynamic and chemistry between the two of us that we talk about on the podcast is always gonna create something that's positive and good, ultimately at the end of the day. So those would be the things that point to.
For sure.
Yeah. I will also just say um our intersections are what makes us qualified. You hear us on the podcast. We always end it, we're too Black and too nerdy. Those are the things we've probably been hearing our whole lives, right? Where there was a point in time where the nerd was too nerdy for a lot of people, and whether it was in school or white people be like, you can't be part, you know what I mean? There's always some sort of barrier that being nerdy creates. And then you also hear them say the exact same thing. You could be too Black to be nerdy, or you could be too nerdy to be Black. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot that's wrapped up in those intersections, which I think which I think makes us qualified to use our platform to say the things we decide to say on Two Black Nerds. So I just want to throw that out there too.
For sure. Most definitely, man. Man, I feel like we could talk podcast, content creation, film, movies, music. We could talk all that for days. But no, I definitely don't want to hold you guys anymore. I feel like what you guys did give has been amazing. And I want to thank you all again for taking the time out of the day to just sit with me, little old me, and had this conversation and let me conduct this interview. It was an honor. Like I said at the beginning, I had the utmost respect for both of you. I just appreciate again y'all taking the time to come on this show and just talk to me, man. So if there's any last or parting words you guys want to give to any of the viewers before we head out, yeah, I don't have any more questions for you.
No, man, appreciate the opportunity to come on and do this. This was great. Appreciate everything that you're doing, all the people that you talk to, and obviously your platform. I've been seeing it come to fruition and come to life for a few years now. I've known you for a while now, bro. So I'm happy and proud of you. But thank you for having us on. The only thing I'm gonna say is, if you don't follow us, Twitter, Instagram, Two Black Nerds, and please go get your Two Black Nerds merchandise.
Mine today.
It's really good stuff, man. You don't want to miss out. You want to go get it. twoblacknerds.com. Go ahead and get that stuff, man. But yeah, that's it, man. Find us on Twitter and Instagram and chat, engage with us, listen to the podcast. We're on everything, Spotify, Apple, all the good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that's it. Thanks for having us, for sure.
Of course, man. No problem. No problem. Until next time, Qualified TV viewers, this has been your boy, Stephen Qualls II, signing off. Peace.